Mr. President, there are one or 2 points I'd like to make, if I may.
Go ahead, General.
One, our hopes for recalling the 843rd bomb wing are quickly being reduced to a very low order of probability.
2, in less than 15 minutes from now, the Ruskies will be making radar contact with the planes. 3, when they do, they are going to go absolutely ape, and they're going to strike back with everything they got. 4, if, prior to this time, we have done nothing further to suppress their retaliatory capabilities, we will suffer virtual annihilation. Now, 5, if, on the other hand, we were to immediately launch an all-out and coordinated attack on all their airfields and missile bases, we'd stand a damn good chance of catching them with their pants down. Hell, we got a 5-to-1 missile superiority as it is. We could easily assign 3 missiles to every target and still have a very effective reserve force for any other contingency. 6, an unofficial study which we undertook of this eventuality indicated that we would destroy 90% of their nuclear capabilities. We would therefore prevail and suffer only modest and acceptable civilian casualties from the remaining force, which would be badly damaged and uncoordinated.
General, it is the avowed policy of our country never to strike first with nuclear weapons.
Well, Mr. President, I would say that General Ripper has already invalidated that policy.
That was not an act of national policy, and there are still alternatives left open to us.
Mr. President, we are rapidly approaching a moment of truth, both for ourselves as human beings and for the life of our nation. Now, truth is not always a pleasant thing. But it is necessary now to make a choice, to choose between 2 admittedly regrettable, but nevertheless distinguishable post-war environments. One where you got 20 million people killed, and the other where you got 150 million people killed.
You're talking about mass murder, General, not war.
Mr. President, I'm not saying we wouldn't get our hair mussed, but I do say no more than 10 to 20 million killed, top.
Defending the Republic from enemies, foreign and domestic. It's Alex Jones.
Remember what came out even in the New York Times 3.5 years ago? That the Pentagon now has a first strike where they preemptively invade countries. You saw that with Iraq. But that they want to hit Iran with hundreds of, quote, mini nukes. And they've had their PR firms going saying, well, these aren't like your daddy's nukes or your grandpappy's nukes. We need to start preemptively striking people with nukes. Well, that's Curtis LeMay. That's Khan. That's the Rand Corporation, isn't it, Alex Abella?
Absolutely. Absolutely. They were advocating this time and again. I mean, look, originally I always thought that I never much admire Eisenhower, but the more I read about them and the more I studied Rand, the more I realized what a bulwark he was. I mean, how he stood up against these people and said, there's no way I'm going to...
And they thought Kennedy was going to be some sex addict that they could control.
Yeah, exactly. And, much to their surprise, but, by late 1962, early 63, he started saying, hey, hold on there, fellas. I'm not going to go along with your plans. And you know what happened to him. And
right now at PrisonPlanet.tv, we're showing Google Street View, one of their little creations, of the front of the Rand Corporation there on the coastline by Los Angeles with the giant sculpture of a mushroom cloud going off made out of chain links.
Beautiful building, though, isn't it?
Yes. It's just amazing that they'd read your previous book and thought, hey, this guy's A-OK, and had no idea that you'd get into all their stuff and blow them wide open.
I was just telling the truth, brother.
All right, let's rampage through 5 or 6 calls because I do need to get to some other key news here today and a very disturbing little conversation that I had with Joe Strupp of Media Matters yesterday before we end this hour. But so please have your questions ready. I want to get to all of you. I love your calls, but quick question, quick comment. Ryan, Steve, Dan, Larry, Thomas, because I want to try to get to all of you. Quick response back from Alex Abella. Let's talk to Ryan in Illinois. You're on the air.
Hi, Alex and Alex. Great book, great show. My quick question is about Herman Kahn and the Hudson Institute. It seems that I can't tell whether they're good or bad. On one hand, they're talking about, the overpopulation, how it's a myth and that everything's going to be all right. And also, they're demonizing Prozac use and things like that. So there's very mixed messages. I don't know what they're trying to do, if they're trying to gain our confidence, or just your thoughts on that? I mean,
well, the Hudson Institute, obviously, what happened is when Herman Kahn broke the secret, because that's the whole thing. If the Rand Corporation at the time, and to this very day, they're technocrats. They think they're a cabal. They're like the high priests. They tell everybody what to do. And so therefore, Kahn went out and he actually popularized all these things, right? And then he was forced to leave Rand. And after he left, he founded the Hudson Institute, which concentrated on futurology, how the world is going to turn out, again, because of that misguided belief in the redemptive powers of science. And, as a result of that, that's, they come up with all these different things, but, they're slightly off the wall.
Yeah.
And they have different scientists and different people in the think tanks who have even different views. They test for all the idiot savants in specialized areas, and then they let them operate just to get their data. So, yeah, you'll have somebody in one of these groups who's saying psychotropics and drugs are destroying our country, and I've seen what you're talking about, but they'll use their material in another way. Do you understand that?
Yeah, it's kind of like Glenn Beck. He tells 90% of the truth, and he, just leads you on another path whatsoever.
That's right. That's right. You got that straight.
All right, Ryan, appreciate it. Steve in California, you're on the air.
Hi, Alex.
Hey, buddy.
Hi, Alex and Alex.
Hey.
Thank you, guys. Hey, real quick, I appreciate what you're doing. I want to share something that I've actually lived through, and I've actually met with Aaron Russo and trying to get my film out. I've been in a Patriot group, and I want to ask a question, too, for Alex Abella on Iron Mountain, if that really happened. Was Rand involved?
No, it was not. But however, what it did do, Iron Mountain, for those listeners who don't know about it, is this particular document that came out in the late 1960s, mid to late 60s, if I recall correctly, in which it was supposed to be like the guideline, the plot of a small group of people from the government that met every once in a while in order to how to take over the government and to govern the government and the world. And no, that was acknowledged as a satire. But the sad truth about it is that a lot of the things that it mentioned were true. Only the way that it came out was false.
Yeah, it's just like Dr. Strangelove.
Exactly.
Yeah, and just tying it in there, guys, on Lucid and the DARPA system in these lists, I've lived through a miscarriage of justice where my children have been taken from me. I've been kind of labeled. Someone said there's a flag by my name. And it seems to me that they are making lists and tying it in with, Clinton and Carol Quigley. These people really think that we're better off ruled by them. Mm-hmm. And the FEMA thing, it's all true. I mean, I've seen documents like the Marines in 29 Palms. Would you fire upon the American people if they do not give up their guns when a 30-day amnesty period is given?
No, that's on record, Steve. I've got to go, though, because we're almost out of time. Any comments on the military being turned against the people? Alex.
It wouldn't surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me because, that's in the plans, and that's what they got to do. That's what they got to do. After all, the military are just following orders, and these guys think, well, we know best.
Dan in Michigan, you're on the air with Alex Abella. Yeah, Dan, you want to talk?
Yeah, I just had a question about John Nash. I wonder if he could comment on...
John Nash was that brilliant mathematician and one of the creators of game theory, although he wasn't as big as he was made out to be in the movie. What was it? Brilliant...
A Beautiful Mind.
A Beautiful Mind, thank you. Right, he was in RAND for a couple of years. RAND, at the time, in the 1950s, was like the center of game theory. Matter of fact, without RAND, probably game theory as we know it today would not exist, because they thought that with game theory, they'd be able to figure out what the Soviet Union was going to do next, because at the time, the Soviet Union was a closed society. Our spies in the Soviet Union were not getting much information, so they were trying to posit a way by which they could say, well, the Soviet Union is going to act this way, so therefore we should act that way. And so, Nash was there for a couple of years, but, he went in and out. And as mentioned in his biography, the crucial things that he developed, he did at Princeton, not necessarily at
All right, Dan, thank you. Good question. Larry in Texas, you're on the air.
Hello.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Mr. Abella, I appreciate you for being around, hanging around so long. I've followed your work for quite a while.
Thank you.
One of the first things I saw was, it was a book that I got about JFK when the Zapruder films came out and everything, and it talked about Montauk. And I thought, well, Montauk is, you know, in Martha's Vineyard, you know, well, that's where everybody's going to meet. Little did I know about Bohemian Grove and that sort of thing. And so I just wanted to say I appreciate, you know, everything that you've done over the years. Also, Mr. Jones, if you wouldn't mind, I live on a farm also, and we lease out part of the land to a gentleman to pays the school taxes. And before I could get out there, it laid fallow this year. He came by and sprayed it completely with a Roundup.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that, Larry. That's a big problem. You know, we've got to move here because we're almost out of time. Let's try to finish up with a quick question from Thomas in Arkansas. Thomas, you're on the air.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Alex and Alex. Just a quick question. I haven't read the book. I plan to because I want to see what my brother's up to. He's an analyst with Rand. I wanted to know if you mentioned anything in there about the security clearances of the analysts.
No, not directly. I know that everybody goes through security clearance, in order to be able to be hired by them. I myself went through one. The thing is that I was helped by the fact that, my brother at one point had worked for a place where he got a lot of high level of clearance. But I don't specifically go into that, although I have heard from analysts who have read this. I went to conferences and stuff like that, and they said, they totally agree with what's in the book, and that there's nothing wrong in the book itself.
Well, you were clearly led into one level of the security ring, the deepest anybody outside had ever been allowed to.
Right.
But we know it goes even a lot deeper than that.
Absolutely.
A great question, Thomas. Sorry we're out of time. Alex Abella, great having you on.
My pleasure.
Look forward to having you in our film about the Tea Parties and the political manipulation. God bless you, and folks can find out more at alexabella.com.